Hi, Sam. Thanks so much for being here. Before we get into the book, can you first tell listeners a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Yes. I live in Seattle. I'm involved locally with a lot of animal liberation, vegan stuff, as well as other things related to Palestine, immigration, etc. Um, I grew up in Maryland in the US. I moved to Chicago when I was 18 for university, studied philosophy, got involved with like the DIY underground noise and punk music scenes and kind of learned about like doing things yourself and communities and just making things happen, which has informed a lot of my stuff with the writing. I moved to Seattle in 2013 and moved onto a houseboat. And I wasn't vegan at all. Um, and every year there would be ducklings, and I would love them and want them to be safe and protected. And finally, after a few years, I was like eating a chicken's wing while watching the baby ducks and was like, hey, this is maybe kind of um, in contradiction. So that was like an early kind of formative experience. I don't think it was like one thing that pushed me in this direction, but also like learning about animal grief. Uh, Grief has played a large role in my life, and so learning about various ways in which animals grieve together in community, independently, ritual, um, wailing, um, etc. also helped kind of show the inner world to me in a way that resonated. In early COVID, I saw some news articles about like um, chicks dying in the U.S. Postal system, and I was like, "Wait, what? We're mailing chicks in the mail?" And like, I had no idea that thing, and that was like, okay, maybe you need to look a little deeper at what's going on out there. Um, so it was like an overtime kind of thing. And I went through like periods of like pescatarian or vegetarian or like eating stuff that would have been thrown away otherwise, before eventually going vegan in diet and then eventually realizing there were all these other ways in which I was exploiting animals outside of my diet and then became more like fully vegan. Um, yeah.
Wow, that's such an interesting story. It's always amazing. Even now, I've been vegan over a decade, but I'm still amazed by all the different ways we abuse animals.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like
There's
when you learn
still
those
ones
things,
that are like, oh my.
yeah, you learn things for the first time and you're like, how could we do this? Yeah. Also, you say you're into punk music. Would you consider yourself straight edge?
I don't. I don't drink or do drugs
Hmm.
presently and don't really plan on it, but I don't think I'm like straight edge philosophically.
Okay. Okay. I just thought that's interesting since punk has such a rich history of animal advocacy.
Yeah, it's interesting because like my coming up in like punk and noise spaces, I didn't really encounter a lot of like the animal liberation type people. I wish that I had, but it was honestly kind of a lot more nihilistic. Um,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
yeah, if I could go back to my earlier self. Well, I guess in the present day, I still go to shows and like now I like bring zines that I've made or like leave books or like
Mm-hmm.
wear um I've got this like Maris Bow, who's like a noise artist, like t-shirt that has like an animal liberation like thing with like the crash font and so like yeah, I do my part now that I wish
Hmm.
others were doing in those scenes that I was in back then.
Right. And that sort of leads into another question I wanted to ask, and that's your presence on social media. Like you're very active in ways that I think I could never be because I hate social media, but you're very creative in the way you find ways to promote your book and also just do like general animal advocacy. Do you have any advice for other like self-published authors or just animal activists in general for,
Mhm.
improving their social media game?
Yeah, um I guess like I mean it's gonna come down to like who are you like personally. What are you trying to do? Where do you feel comfortable? Um, like even like resources. Like I leave books in little free libraries, and that's not free for me. So like that does have a cost. Um, but yeah, like I guess like personally, I was already using Instagram some like earlier in life, like on my personal page. And then once I like was doing the book thing, I was doing both, and then I was like, this is too much. So like I just don't use my personal account anymore. Um, so I already felt kind of familiar there, but I didn't really have, I don't know. It's definitely evolved over the last 9 months, I would say. I've been more creative and like um, sharing a lot more stuff that's not just like relevant to the book. Um, I've found that like going into it as like a community space where like I'm meeting amazing people all around the world and like talking with them in chats like more than I talk to like my parents or friends in like some and it's just really fun to be like kind of part of this or multiple communities and then like not approaching it as like I'm trying to hustle a book but more just like engaging with the conversation or sharing my thoughts into it like um people have like compared it to like you go to a party and you don't like show up like waving your book around like hey buy my book like instead you like go and talk to people individually and get to know them and like if it's natural to bring it up maybe you bring it up but otherwise like you don't have to and then maybe you learn something about a person and you're like oh you should talk to this other person or you might like this and just treating it more like a community rather than like a billboard. I've also found like some people who talk about social media that are not within the literary or animal spaces to be kind of inspiring and giving me ideas. Like there's this makeup artist, Kaylee. Her YouTube channel is by Kaylee, and she's mostly claiming to make content for other makeup artists, but really most of it is like generally applicable and very insightful and creative. Um, there's another podcast called The Manager's Playbook which is a hip hop artist management guy, and he has other like hip hop managers and independent artists on, and they talk about various um, things that they do with social media as well as with like actual world and like guerrilla marketing and stuff like that. So like when I was first starting, I was like looking like how to market a book or how to author on social media, but like there's all these playbooks out there about like how to do a book launch and stuff, but like honestly, like I had like 5 followers, so it's like who's gonna actually see that anyway? Like what's the point?
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. Like it's hard, and some people feel more comfortable with it than others, but like if you feel more comfortable making like written stuff, like maybe do Substack. If you feel more comfortable doing like short form stuff, maybe TikTok. Um, and you can always like cross post some of it. Like I post like, can I curse?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, like I'll post like just like I'll post like some slides on Instagram and then like rather than going and like fully making it into like a TikTok or a YouTube, like I'll just like turn that into a video and there's like a shitty version on YouTube Shorts and a shitty version on TikTok and I'll just like put them on Reddit, but like not spend all that time. So like it seems like people are recommending like if there's one that's like your focus, like spend your time there. You can always like do others, but like I even just will like share like crappy versions of what I've already made into the others and like
Mhm.
it's out there, whatever. Like,
Yeah. Well, it obviously seems to be working for you, from my perspective at least. Um,
hmm,
and I really like what you said about like making it a community space because we're obviously very in need of that, especially as, activists. We're all spread all over the place, and it's good to be able to try to
mhm.
connect with people in a more personal way, even if it's just online.
Yeah, it's been incredible. Like
Mhm.
I've met people and had conversations and shared the book and heard from people about it like in ways that have already made it like more than worth anything I could have ever hoped to get out of it all.
Mhm. So have So have you always been interested in writing? Like how did that this um you like publishing a book, how did that converge with the veganism? Like I think well, yeah,
Hmm.
you just tell me like which came first? Like how did this come about? Like you wanting
Yeah,
deciding you wanted to write a book.
yeah. So like late teenage years, early 20s, I guess. As I was like finding my place in the world within like underground music or like philosophy or literature, fiction, I found that there was like a connection that I was feeling to these authors and musicians and stuff that kind of was like expressing my own thoughts in a way that was like very profound, and seeing like the historical dialogue across centuries and millennia was like very enthralling for me. And so when I was younger, I kind of knew that like I had that drive towards authorship or something in there, but I wasn't really sure. I mean, I wrote like philosophy papers and theses and stuff like that, but nothing like creative. And then it was just always in the background. I knew it was there, but I was kind of just, going about life and dealing with a lot of shit. And um, yeah, so I wasn't really paying too much attention to it. Um, in early 2023, I finally started like reading and learning about like what people were saying about veganism. Um, and like the first book I read was Henry Stephen Salt's Animals' Rights from like 1892, I think. And it was really special, like seeing this older text and like seeing the format that he had written in, which is like much more like polemic rather than like rigorous analytical argument, and seeing that like that is acceptable. Like having come up in like a analytical philosophy background where everything is like supposedly like hyper logical, even though it's not. It was kind of freeing to see like you can just like write things, um, like not like falsehoods, but like with a message and polemic. And then from that, he lists out like a bunch of earlier stuff. Um, so I read in there he talks about after um, sorry, Mary Wollstonecraft's Vindication of the Rights of Women, that there was this dude bro who wrote a book, The Vindication of the Rights of Animals, which is like satirizing Wollstonecraft's feminism as well as Thomas Paine's like um, rights of humans, by saying like, oh, if we are granting rights to humans and animal or to humans and women as a separate category, um, what next? We're going to grant them to animals, and it's actually a really good argument. Like he draws on a bunch of different like ways in which animals are exploited and ties it back to like Greco-Roman stuff about animals. So it's like if it wasn't satire, it would honestly be pretty good. But it like seeing that just like, oh man, one, like there is this like that was kind of my first insight into like the eco-feminist approach of like the ways in which like animal exploitation is intertwined with like human and ecological, uh, but then also seeing the like going that took me further back in time. And then I read this book, um The Case of the Animals versus Man Before the King of the Jinn, which is from like um, the 900s, like in the AD calendar, and like 340s in the Islamic calendar, from Basra, Iraq. And they're like the animals get together basically and take the humans to court, and like the animals and the humans are like citing from the Quran and Hadith and like making their case. And that was like super inspiring. I was like, oh my gosh, these people like 1,000 years ago were doing all this. So I was starting to encounter like a ancient lineage of it, and then I went on the trip and had the moment of inspiration at the temple, seeing Hathor nursing the pharaoh, and then feeling in my heart this contradiction of how the actual animals are and were treated. And then came back and the book just kind of poured out. So I wasn't planning on writing it, but I was sort of setting myself up for it in the types of things I was engaging with. And then, um, yeah, so kind of finally came around to that inner drive that I had for so long.
Wow, that's so much interesting information. And that kind of leads into like more questions about the book now. So, can you explain what exactly a lament is? And also, can you like walk us through, as you started working on the book, can you walk us through your research process and did that process evolve as you were writing? And I guess you are still sort of working on the book. Like you ask
Right.
readers to give you feedback and you will like update it as necessary. So can you just sort of walk us through all of
Yeah, I
that?
recently added maps. I just added maps finally. Like I've been meaning to do that forever. Uh, but yeah, so the initial thing was going to be a lament. So this is like one of the oldest forms of oral and written literature that we um, have from like the Fertile Crescent or Egypt, and it exists all around the world from forever ago. Um, and it's like raw, inconsolable grief, rage, often with the destruction of a city state, or a society, or the deaths or disappearances of like loved ones or deities. Um, the lament for Ur is a Sumerian lamentation after the Elamites destroyed their city state in 2000 BC, and it um, includes lamentations from some cow goddesses who I bring into the book. Um, within the Egyptian traditions, there's the lamentations of Ipuwer from like 2000, 1900 BC, kind of. That's like lamenting the collapse of the centralized state and like the um, toppling of societal norms. It's like, the plower is now like in charge of the king and like all this stuff. And it's kind of like propaganda about like the risks of like what happens if you loosen the like authoritarian theocratic grip on society and like patriarchal slaying. It's like, oh, all this bad stuff's gonna happen. So it's like in the lamentation tradition, but like um many scholars see it within kind of a um role of justifying and upholding a strong centralized state. um and then there's the lamentations of Isis and Nephthys, which we have a record of it from like second century BC from um, Plutarch, who was a um, priest at the Temple of Apollo at um, why am I forgetting the like main Apollo Delphi in Greece, and he spent some time in Egypt and captured some stories and stuff, and so this is like despair from the goddess sisters Isis and Nephthys after their brother um, who's married to Nephthys kills the other brother who's married to Isis. And so, like, they're expressing this lamentation. Um, so it felt natural to situate it within those historical genres. And it was also the right genre because, like, I'm not out here trying to be like, oh, like, it's really sad how animals are treated, but, like, I have hope that, like, we're going to achieve animal liberation in our lifetime, or that, like, um, that there even needs to be hope. It's like this stuff is awful and it's horrible, and those who are experiencing it like don't need you to put a positive spin on it. Like this is just an expression of that suffering and rage, and it's fine to just do that without trying to like make it, you know, comfort people. So initially, it was just going to be the lament. Um, Modeled especially after the Lament of Ur and drawing on the Egyptian laments. Um, But then being the nerd I am, like I knew that there was also like traditions of like proverbs or sayings within ancient Egyptian literature, um, some of which are also quoted in like the Hebrew proverbs, um, and knowing that there was also those traditions within Mesopotamia as well as um, the Levant and Egypt. So I was like, all right, well, let's play with those as well. So I brought the proverbs in, and then I was looking at it as well. There's also like the prophecy format within all these um, cultures, and so maybe we bring that into. Um, so that was how like it expanded from like the single genre of lament into like bringing in a variety of ancient genres, and then like extracting like actual primary source texts from temple walls or sarcophagi or papyri or um, written on actual calf's skin, like vellum, um, and then like use them directly to tell the story and the message, as well as to subvert them in order to like point out the hypocrisies, which is very much within the traditions of these ancient genres. You see this in, for example, like the biblical prophets. Um, they'll be quoting earlier scripture and sometimes using it as like a reminder, and other times like subverting it. So yeah, and then I was also paying attention to like back to Henry Stephen Salt's book. Like he covers a variety of different ways in which animals are exploited, whether through fashion or entertainment, labor, etc. So I wanted to make sure that I covered all of those. So then I started going deeper into like actual like research into for example, like how were bows and arrows made in ancient Egypt, and like, oh, there's like of course the feathers on the arrows, but then there's like the development of the composite bow, which is like way stronger, that includes like a ram's horn to make the bow stronger. So then I'm seeing how like back in the day, as well as in the present day, like the exploitation of animals is just fundamentally within the like imperialist system. You see pharaohs and people from other adjacent cultures um, doing a lot of cattle raiding, um, oftentimes capturing animals as well as humans, sometimes just women, um, and taking gold or other precious metals, as well as grazing lands being cause of a lot of the warfare, and then sometimes even taking the gods themselves as a power move to say like we got your deity. So in looking more at like the sociological aspects of the ancient worlds, just seeing that there was this like fundamentally intertwined link between the growth of empire, the like patriarchal societies, the accumulation of wealth in cattle and lands and gold, um, and how the like religious cultural institutions were used to um, promote that, as well as whitewash that, launder it, um, and how that is all still being done today. So like um, I'm telling the story of like Bronze Age goddesses and deities and cultures, but like many of these same deities are still being used to justify genocides and imperialism and patriarchy. Like it might seem silly to be like writing about a deity from like 4,000 years ago, but like many of these same deities are still being used in the present day within these regions and around the world for similar ends.
Yeah, and I mean, people still today, even not with these ancient deities, are using religion to justify animal exploitation in many ways. So I think it's
Yeah.
incredibly relevant. So, I
Thanks.
guess that sort of leads in, like you chose to use indigenous names for Heteru and basically everything and everyone else in the book as much as possible. So that I'm guessing that is related to all the stuff you were just talking about.
Yeah, so like as I was understanding more, I was learning that like a lot of the names that we're commonly using come from the Greco-Roman um, eras of um, occupation, imperialism. Um, so like, what's a good example? Well, we can just go with Hathor. So like, Hathor like comes out of the Greco-Roman era, whereas like her more indigenous name is Het which means House of Horus. So like there's all these situations in which knowing like the indigenous names actually like greatly enriches our understanding of the society and the meanings. Like there's um, a temple in present day Sudan from this Queen T, um, and it's called Sedenga in the present day, which I'm not sure of the origin of that word. But if you go back to the actual sources, it's named Ati, which is like place of tea. Um, and she represents herself as Hathor there, and her husband, Pharaoh, like has another temple nearby in a place that's called Soleb that like he's talking about conquering all the people of like present day like Sudan and the Levant. It's actually like the first place that you see the term Yahweh written, and it's like I want to say like 1500 BC. Um, so one, like I think it's fucked up to keep referring to these people under the names that their conquerors gave them, sort of how we might be decolonizing within our own societies and like not naming things after old dead white dudes who committed genocide. Like, let's maybe understand like the actual living place names of these within the communities. So, similarly applying it within the book, it becomes difficult because, like, for example, with like within like Mesopotamian places, like, am I going to call it what the Egyptians called those places, or am I going to call it what the like Mesopotamians called those places? That obviously also can change over time and stuff. So I tried to situate it all from the perspective of the like frame narrator, who is this priestess of Hathor, and so I'm trying to say like, what might she have known these places or people or deities as? And yeah.
Okay. So we have like two questions left, and I want to sort of talk about Heteru as a cow goddess, which I find I love how ancient religions um, had like animal deities. So that's always been very interesting to me. And the dairy industry often, likes to tell us that cows aren't good mothers to justify their existence. Like why they need to take the milk
Hmm.
from the cows, which is obviously a modern opinion because ancient peoples often associated cows with motherhood, love, and femininity. So
Hmm.
it's like we've lost a certain reverence for the interconnectedness of life in the modern age. In what ways would you like to see our society reconnect with those ancient beliefs, and in what ways do you think we can improve on those beliefs?
Yeah. Yeah. So the feeling that I had when I saw that carving on the temple was like just imagining, and I don't know if this is exactly how it goes down, but that like people were looking around at the animals and they're like, which ones are great mothers? And they saw um, the cow, the hippo, um, many others, of course, but the cow particularly is often used, nursing and protecting her child. And they thought, wow, that's like a great symbol for motherhood. And yet, in the past, like on the cover of the book, I found another carving on a sarcophagus that shows a mother cow crying a single tear while her male son is tied to her foreleg and a man is taking the milk from her. And this is 4,000 plus years old. Um, so it was really interesting seeing that there was this understanding back then as well. It's not like a contemporary exclusive thing of seeing that like this relationship has been corrupted. Um, I think in the present day, we're so far removed from the actual animals that are consumed or otherwise exploited that we don't really know what those relationships are like. So we might just believe what we hear. Um, and so, like, I think sanctuaries play a great role in like showing the impact of the separation of the bond between the mother and the child, um, as well as occasionally being able to provide safety for the mother and the children at some sanctuaries. Um, and I also like think we need to like understand that it's not just the motherhood relationship that is corrupted, but the fatherhood one as well, in the past as well as the present. Like um, the the males, there's a process called electroejaculation where they will extract the semen. Um, there's disfigurement of some males who are called teaser bulls, where they make it so that they can um, get aroused but not actually like insert, and those are then used to like mark when the women are in heat. Um, and so this fatherhood relationship has also been extremely corrupted. Um, and on the one side we see the corruption of the motherhood, but then we also see in these societies um, like the role of and symbol of the bull as being like powerful conqueror, um, and within deities um, such as like El, Yahweh, Baal, which all kind of end up morphing together, um, as well as like actual texts and symbolism within the Egyptian tradition. Like the king is um, he's the living Horus, which is like bird, but he's also considered the bull of his mother, which means he's impregnating his mother with himself, essentially. So, like on a daily basis with the sun, um, it's born from sometimes Hathor, sometimes some of the other cow deities, rises and then sets in the west, and this is a dying process in which um, the mother cow Hathor oftentimes will then resuscitate the sun, and then through the course of the night they'll be protected and get to rise again. And it's this process um, of impregnation and birth. And yeah, we see pharaohs depicting themselves as strong bulls and toppling walls and people, and it just is a stark exhibition of like the ways in which a like gender binary can be used to like paint the female as like only nurturing and like kind and gentle, and the male is like only like strong and conquering, whereas like um cows will also fight to defend their children. And um there's like a hippo cow or a hippo goddess who like hippos will fuck you up if you go after their kids, like um but the narratives that were passed down in the symbols are like male equals dominance, woman or female equals like care, and I think we have to smash those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're out of time now, but thank you so much for doing this. This has been such a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything you do. I love reading your interviews and reviews that you do.
Oh, thank you.
It's a great service.